Hello everybody, I'm Sobin Pin. Welcome to Khmer Post USA television show. This week episode I have City Councilor Rodney Elliott. Welcome Rodney.
Nice to see you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I haven't chatted with you for what, 4 years?
Yeah, it's been quite some time.
Life's been quite an adventure for you, ups and downs. It's been treating you well otherwise?
Life is good. It's good to be reelected to the council. Family is good. Yeah, life is good. Very busy. There's a lot of good times, a lot of good things going on in the city right now.
Yeah, I see a lot of construction too, but hopefully we have a little bit of time to get into that at the end. But the reason why I invite you on today, because your controversial motion on way of electing mayor. I mean, for a very long time we had the Form E government, which fellow council member voted for their own mayor. And since we have the lawsuits and the charter change, and that will be, there's a lot of change in the government will be happening in 2021.
Sure.
As they're working on the redistricting, for the city of Lowell, and at the same time you put in this motion, I thought that was just perfect timing. So tell me, how did that go?
Yeah, no, I agree, Southern. I think the timing, people say, well, why are you doing it now after being on the council for this starting my 23rd year? I do think as a result of the lawsuit that took place that it's time to change not only the way that we elect members of the city council, which will change to 8 districts, 8 neighborhoods, I'd like to refer it to, rather than districts, because I think it'll paints a better picture. So there'll be 8 city councils elected from neighborhoods. And then there'll be 3 at large under the settlement that was agreed upon through the lawsuit. So I thought, what better time than now to continue to empower people? And I want to say empower because I think that's the appropriate word, and it's a strong word that sends a message that we want more people to get involved. We want a more diverse representation on the city council. And I think the best way to do that is give people the opportunity to vote, and why not vote for mayor? As you mentioned, the planning form of government, our charter clearly states that we, once you get elected as a city councilor, all run at large, then it's the process to elect the mayor. Granted, it's ceremonial mayor, but still, I think it carries significant responsibility and power. So 9 members of the city council come together at the first meeting of the year and vote for the mayor. So why do I think this is wrong? Number one, or not the best way, let me say that. For the first reason is people really don't understand the process. They go to vote for city councilors. The average is about 4 or 5 because it's, in my opinion, difficult for the average voter to focus on, say, this past term, I think there were 26 or 25 city councilors. I don't think there's enough time for people to really grasp that number of candidates, which I think why district representation is going to be better. But secondly, the process leaves bad relationships, the current form of electing the mayor. Bad relationships, there's
between
really,
councilors.
There's really no good criteria to,
right.
Well, I'm voting for him because he's either been on the longest or there's a political motive behind it, quite frankly. Bad, worse, or indifferent. I just feel that we should take sort of the backroom deals, I will call them, because that's what they are. Give that to the people. Let the people vote. Who do they think is doing a good job? And the way to do that is what the city of Worcester does. Worcester is a little bit of a larger community, clearly, than Lowell, but they have a process where you have to be a city council that's running at large, and again, we'll have 3 seats in Lowell, and you have to declare yourself as the mayor. So once you're elected as a city councilor at large, then in the final election, because we have a primary and we have a general, then you will be selected by the people.
The top tier
right.
vote getter
right.
among 3
running
for at large will be as mayor.
It sounds a little confusing, but in reality, it is not, because if you're going to run in a ward, then there would be a separate ballot and say, where I'm from Ward 6. There'll be a ballot, and there'll be an opportunity for voters to vote for a ward city councilor and then at-large city councilor. So I think that's the way to go. I hope tonight, interestingly enough, today is Tuesday, there's a subcommittee meeting that we have set up. The subcommittee is called Election and Redistricting, to implement those items that you talked about, setting up the districts and setting up the process. And one item that is still not addressed in the lawsuit is how we're going to vote and elect the mayor. So now is the perfect time to do that. I know there's been discussion on the floor of the council prior to tonight's subcommittee meeting. Let's delay this. Let's put this on the ballot. Let's see if people want the opportunity to vote for mayor. And quite frankly, I thought that notion didn't make any sense to me. To me, who does not want, as a voter, as a taxpayer, why would I not want to have the opportunity to vote for mayor? So I don't think it belongs on the ballot, quite frankly.
Right. And as we know, majority voter come from certain blocks, so I think that could sabotage on the ballot.
Yeah, if
you can talk frankly with me, and since you were saying talking frankly.
Right. No, for some reason, the process in place is not a good process, in my opinion. It's old. It's outdated, and it was adopted back in when the charter change was implemented, and it's not a good process. And again, if we want to engage people to vote more, empower them more, give them the right to come out and say, well, I want to vote for this person. It has worked well in the city of Worcester, and as I recall, the argument to expand the number of city councilors when we were going through the lawsuit process, expand it to 11, similar to Worcester, which, okay, we agreed to that and the plaintiffs agreed to that. So keeping in line with what the city of Worcester has as part of their electoral process, they give the people the right to vote for mayor. So again, I hope that we move forward on this tonight at the subcommittee and bring the recommendation. I suspect some members will resist the change, but I think it's good for people.
Well, we hope to have you back and give us more updates on that and what people can do to help engage, because if this is a subject that our audience may be taking a serious interest in, maybe there are some supports you may have there.
Right. Yeah.
As that's the first segment we discussed, and I think off note a little bit. So you served mayor. I mean, during that time, you went to Cambodia. That's when we had a chat. How has it been? It's been 4 years, and how has it been? You ran for the Senate, got a little hiccup there.
Yeah, a little hiccup. I didn't win the Senate seat, but yeah, since went to Cambodia, that was in 2015. So time does march on. I still continue to be very involved with the Cambodian community. I still, and I'm very humble, quite frankly, to be invited to Sweet 16 and to many weddings, and just continue to be engaged and be a voice for the community. Not much has changed. I guess the good news is that we have 2 Cambodian city councilors and a representative as well. So I think that's positive. But yeah, I went to Cambodia. I went 2 times. Once as the mayor, and then one has not. So life, as you know, life continues to be busy, and still very involved with the community and politics. I have a number of motions on tonight regarding economic development and small business development.
I was looking at that. That was my next question.
Yeah, I think it's
What's
important.
your plan for that motion?
Yeah, so I think economic development, we're in one of the strongest economies that we've seen in many decades, and I feel that we need to sort of kickstart a little bit more economic development going on in the city. We do see some construction, but as you know, economic development, in order to weather any downturn, it's important to put projects in the pipeline. So one of the motions is about economic opportunity zones, and in 2017, the Congress adopted a Jobs and Economic Reform Act, and there are some incentives in that particular act that I feel that we can take advantage of. So The other motion I have that I mentioned earlier is about small business development. We have these corridors in the city, and you know, as a small business
yes.
owner, it's the heart and soul of this country, and I feel that we can do more in these corridors, whether it's similar to a couple square where we made some infrastructure improvements, developed a small business organization in that particular area. And I think we should do the same thing on Branch Street. I think we can do the same thing on Bridge Street. And it doesn't have to be a large corridor. It can be places like Back Central or, you know, in South Lowell and Centerville. So I think there's a good opportunity to stimulate more economic development. But we have to go out into the neighborhoods. And I plan on having these economic development meetings, these subcommittees, right in the neighborhood. So
'Cause I remember back in 2015 when you served as mayor, you had a economic development task force, downtown task force, and you know, because it was an ad hoc, so it kind of dissolved without notice. Is that something you intend to come to bring it back, or what's about the way you're gonna execute it this time around?
yeah, I think that's a good point when it comes to the downtown. It's always a bit of a struggle because of the way society adopts habits, if you will. I mean, you know, I think with the advent of internet and Amazon and online buying, that is another challenge for urban planners and cities like Lowell to keep the downtown vibrant. You need a strong central business district. So we continue to evolve, and I think Lowell has done well over the number of decades. You know, back in the 70s, we started with the National Park, in the 80s, Wang, and then the 90s, we started with the artist lofts, and the 2000s, you have to continue to evolve, and I think we've been successful in that avenue. But you know, the downtown, you can't focus all of our attention on it, but you can't have empty storefronts. So to answer your question, I do feel that this will be part of this discussion on getting out into the neighborhoods, because the downtown is a neighborhood now, and it's important to keep it alive and keep it vibrant. And sort of just an aside, it's a rather controversial issue, but you know, over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, we've had some significant problems downtown with some of the bars. And as you know, I am very clear, and I think I've upset some of the established owners downtown, that 2 o'clock is too late, that we should be rolling back the hours that bars can be open. Right now it's 2 o'clock, and we have seen statistics at the last city council meeting, and that reflected that there's a lot of police calls, a lot of calls downtown between the hours of 1 and 3 o'clock. And it's a problem to me, and we've been dealing with it since 2010. And then back in 2014, I can remember headlines saying Wild Wild West downtown. So I think we need to clamp down on the hours of operation. I know there is some resistance. People are a little bit hesitant because we do have some local bar owners, but I do think that's part of the economic development strategy that we have to look at. I think we can sustain a vibrant downtown and not have all the problems that come between 1 and 3 o'clock, and their significance. So I know that was a long-winded answer to your question about, you know, what these motions about, but there is, I think there's a lot of intermingling of these issues to keep the downtown going.
But that sounds like a good start of the conversation again.
Yeah.
And
yeah. No, I think it's important. Again, back to the bar closing, I know it's somewhat controversial because bar owners, they and I guess restaurants to a lesser degree. I've spoken to a number of restaurant owners, and not really too concerned about it. They don't make their money in large part between 1 and 2 o'clock. And quite frankly, I really can't see a lot of bar owners. I'm not a bar owner, but I can't see 1 to 2 being, you know, making the difference in a week-to-week paycheck. So I do feel that given the resources that we have to call from all the neighborhoods on a Thursday or Friday or Saturday night, to me it's not worth it. And then we deal with, you know, sort of a lot of ancillary problems of, you know, we get complaints of people urinating in doorways, and a lot, you know, violence and fights and trash. It just seems that we have to clamp down. And the notion to say, well, let's look at just the bad bar, you know, the bars that are trouble, Does that just kick the can to some of the establishments? To me, if we're going to do it, let's level the playing field and make not. I just don't want to make Lowell the last call anymore. You know.
Sounds reasonable.
Sounds reasonable, but
Yeah. I think the biggest thing happening in the last couple of years, and it's getting more and more excitement to the scene, is the Hamilton Canal District. There's a lot of construction going on, and as I know, the courthouse is near finish, and a lot of things will be changing and property around or cleaning up. Tell me the anticipation for 2020, what are we looking at?
It's exciting. It is exciting because I've been on the council long enough that it was back in 2009, I believe. It was under former city manager John Cox that the city took a bold step, in my opinion, to purchase that entire parcel of property that had, as we've seen, it had numerous pieces of property, and at the time, it was, it was $3.6 million that the city was going to have to borrow, and keep our fingers crossed that we would develop. So it went through a long development process, many charrettes, to get to the point where we are at now. It's a breath of fresh air. The city is going to start reaping the benefits of our investment on selling off these pieces of property, developing housing, developing commercial, and not industrial space, but it's it's an important element of the whole economic development puzzle, and we're starting to see that we had struggled. It's been slower than we thought, for a couple of reasons. One, in getting infrastructure in there, water, sewer, gas, in order for the developers to come in and literally construct new buildings. So we have bridge, we have a new bridge, we have access, we have the utilities, thanks to a MassWorks grant that the governor has supported us on. You mentioned the Judicial Center that had been in the works for decades, and I will say Governor Baker made that happen. So I think it's all positive. We have 2 housing developments by Wind Developing that will be breaking ground in March. We can see the garage that was also an impediment to development there, because you can't construct new buildings without a place for the employees to park. So the Lord Overpass, the infrastructure, and the parking garage, those are 3 critical elements of the development of that parcel that are now in place, and now we see more interest in many of the other parcels. We saw, I'll just stop here, but it was about a month ago, Salapoli came in, interested in building a new private parking garage, and interested in developing 2 or 3 parcels. So good stuff.
Are we expecting more new residents? Is that why Wind Development they're gonna come up with 2 new buildings?
Yeah, the downtown, we talked about the sustaining the downtown. In order for there to be a sort of a market or a population to support the downtown, we've got to have housing. And I think these 2 housing developments, they're close to mass transit, so folks are, and believe me, I ride the train all the time. The trains are full because people, in large part, can't afford the Boston market, if you will, or they're just finding more reasonable housing in Lowell with the same urban lifestyle that many people want to live. So I think those 2 housing developments, and Salapoli is talking about another piece of development in that housing development in that area too. So, I think with the loss of the housing complex along the river that that UMass Lowell took, there were 400 units of housing that were, in large part they were professional people, and when
the parking part.
the Perkins Apartments.
Mm-hmm.
As a result of that closure, it was kind of a setback for us, because those professional people have the disposable income to support the restaurants, to support the shops, and keep the downtown vibrant. So I think this, this new onslaught of, and some of it's affordable, by the way. It's not all market rate, so it's a good balance to support the affordable housing need, but at the same time get people with more disposable income to support the downtown businesses.
Are these apartments will be for sale as condos or for rent?
I believe it's a combination of both. For instance, if you look at the Thorndike Exchange across the street, Those are all condominiums. And by the way, Mr. Lopoli is developing another 65 units at the Thorndike Exchange. So I'm not sure if you had a chance to go into the place, but it's he's put $22 million into that building, and it's really a landmark piece of development in the city. So it's a balance. I believe the two new developments by Wind Development, they're moderate housing. They're apartments, as far as I know. So it's it's market rate housing apartments, and then they call it workforce, an element of workforce apartments, and then moderate income. So.
Wow, sounds all exciting. So I think one final piece I'm curious is the Lord Overpass.
Yeah.
What is the plan in place now for Lord Overpass? Because the traffic, I heard that's going to change.
So the pattern the pattern will not change, but this is why I believe, and some folks are calling it the Big Fill. And there's some apprehension from some people in the community because they see traffic moving around on the upper surface, and then there's 4 lanes of traffic going underneath the overpass. And I've been to a number of informational sessions, and I believe that it's 2 things. It's not going to completely eliminate the traffic because there are so many vehicles coming from Dracut and Hudson and Pelham and to get to the Lowell connector, to get to Route 3, to get to 495, to go to where to go to jobs. So it's not going to completely eliminate it. Nothing will eliminate it. But what is in place right now is not conducive to good traffic flow. We're trying to get more north to south and east to west traffic from some of the neighborhoods, like Branch Street, like Westford Street. So I think it's going to be a marked difference. There's going to be an additional lane. There's going to be bus lanes that is without a doubt has an impediment on traffic flow. The signals are all going to be timed because they're going to be all new signal boxes. And we're going to be adding another ramp, another lane to the Route 3. If anyone travels there, they know the timing needs to be improved. We need other lanes, and we also need a second lane. So there'll be 2 lanes going on to the Lowell connector.
Why don't there any other highway, per se, exit from 495 and Lowell that allow people to get on there quicker instead of making this local drop?
Yeah,
Lowell?
There was, believe it or not, it's called the Sampson Connector. That was one element. And believe it or not, the end of the Lowell connector, where there was that abrupt stop, very dangerous, that was slated to continue through that neighborhood right to the hotel and allow people to get to 133 and other sections of the city. That never happened. And that was, I've been around, I was a city planner back in 1980, 1987, 1988, when that was a real life plan. So that connector never happened. Similarly to the Rourke Bridge, when that bridge was dedicated as a temporary bridge back in 1980, 81, that bridge was slated to be a 4-lane bridge, which at some point it will be, but the route was to take that traffic and connect all the way up to 213 and Methuen, and people say that's just impossible. But if you look at the plans and you see where the traffic is coming down, they clearly had, they were clairvoyant, because that plan should have been executed because traffic would be a lot better right now.
But
so,
there were things happen at the time.
Things happen. So the Big Fill, as people call it, I believe it's going to start happening the second week of March. They've been out surveying and doing a lot of the preliminary work, but it will be it's a long build out. I believe it's 30 months, so there'll be a lot of consternation with traffic in the city. Similarly to the Pawtucket Street Bridge, there's a lot of bridge work, a lot of things that have been neglected for many, many years that will inevitably make it better. But there's so many more vehicles on the road these days, and it's only growing.
So for the next 3 months until summer, I have to figure out a different way how to take Aiden to school, because that's my route.
If that's your route, you will be frustrated for the next 30 months, by the way.
Not a good news.
It's going to be a long, long time. But it will make things significantly better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for being on today.
You're
I look
welcome.
forward
Thank
to
you for
have you come
having me.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.